this with us. Sarah?
Thank you, Karen. I'm glad that you all are, it seems like we're all over the place with our classroom matrix teaching plan from sprouting to branching out. And hopefully during this session, you can find some useful information no matter which stage your teachers are at. And hopefully we can also build some strong roots to keep that foundation strong as we continue to branch out. So we're going to talk about the purposes of the classroom teaching matrix as an instructional tool. We want to move past the mindset of it just being wall art. And we'll talk about the differences between the matrix that's just posted and one that's actively used throughout daily routines. And then towards the end, I want to give you some coaching strategies so that you can support your teachers, or as Mr. Alexander said, bringing out some sunshine and nutrients that they need. So we're going to help fill that bucket as well. Okay, so first, I want to briefly talk about why this matters. The classroom teaching matrix isn't just about creating another poster, it's about creating that clarity that students can use. So, predictable norms increase belonging and engagement. Consistency across routines reduces that cognitive load. And then, of course, it supports tier one for all students through that matrix. Um, sorry, you can go ahead, Karen. Thank you. And I know sometimes our teachers maybe aren't sure about the purpose or the value behind developing the classroom teaching matrix, and that can lead to some difficulties in the implementation of it. So I want to give you some information that you can use even to share with your teachers if you feel appropriate. So the purpose of the classroom teaching matrix is to define those specific skills that are related to the teacher's norms across the different settings and those activities. We want those consistent norms in all location to ensure that common vision, and the locations in this case would be the routines or the activities. And we know routines create that predictable and calm environment that can reduce disruption. And the value is that it creates teacher ownership and a practical tool to teach those behavior skills. If used correctly, it can feel like a more natural part of the lesson where we're not stopping academic instruction to start behavior instruction. We can blend those together much easily through this matrix as a tool. And we want it to be authentic to the teacher that can be adjusted throughout the year and open for students to engage in that process and to give feedback. So we want the teachers and the students to have ownership of this classroom matrix. And briefly, what a classroom matrix is and isn't. It is a teaching tool. It translates those school-wide norms into what students are expected to do during specific routines, like group work, transitions, independent work, and it gives adults and students that shared language for behavior that supports the learning. It is not just a list of rules or a compliance chart. It's not something that we post once at the beginning of the year and then never touch again. And it's certainly not just a poster to hang on the wall. So if students can't explain the norms or use them during real classroom moments, then that matrix isn't doing its job. So for you as coaches, that distinction is what really matters. Our goal isn't to help teachers create something that's looking good as we're supporting them in their matrix. It's supporting them in using that matrix as a daily instructional tool. So when it's used well, the matrix shows up in how routines are taught and how transitions are handled and even how feedback happens after the poster goes up. And another quick refresher here for the core components of the matrix. So I know we're talking about the teaching plan mostly today, but I did want to highlight a couple of things of the core components for the classroom matrix. We want school-wide alignment, so the norms should be easily aligned with the school-wide norms. And then the green part, the classroom routine alignment, that will be specific to your classroom. So in this example, we have teacher-directed instruction, small group, independent work, transitions, things like that. And that should vary from classroom to classroom. And then the behavior skills, just like your school-wide matrix, are going to be positively stated and student-friendly language. And I want to flag here that we want, if we're looking at the younger grades, the pre-K or the kindergarten, we want this to be easily accessible for them to use. So if they are not readers yet, then we need to consider that as we are developing that matrix so that they can use it a little bit more fluently. All right, so when a matrix only lives on the wall, if it's posted but never referenced, if it's only used at the beginning of the year, if it's used only for correction and not instruction, students cannot articulate or apply their norms. And as coaches, because I want to remind you that I know you're supporting your teachers in this, this helps us to shift our focus from asking, is your matrix posted, to how is your matrix being used to teach and reinforce those norms throughout the day. Okay, so I've got a couple of videos coming up for you with the norms in action. So this example is a 7th grade social studies classroom. And we won't play this video in its entirety because we don't have a ton of time. We're going to play a short clip of it. But I do recommend that if you have the time to come back to this resource and watch this video fully, you'll get a broader picture. But this teacher involves students in developing their classroom norms, and then they reflect at the beginning of each class by choosing which norm most applies to their learning for the day. So he's really referencing it and using it in the beginning of each activity. So as we watch, I want you to look for a strategy that supports student success, and then in the chat, share one positive takeaway.
Hey Sarah, we can't hear the video.
Karen, sorry, there's no sound. Let's see.
What happened?
We don't have sound.
Oh, no.
You might have to change your screen sharing permissions for like optimized for video or something like that.
Okay. I'm going to stop my share real quick then. Sorry. Can you give me another tip, or do you want to pull it up yourself, Sarah?
Yeah, Karen, when you press share and it pops up and asks you which screen you want to share, over on the right-hand side, there's options for share sound and optimize for video sharing. You're going to want to check both of those boxes.
You see it now?
Yes.
I think we got it.
Thank you guys for reflecting on those norms, and we're going to think about those as
Back it up.
Was one of the most essential needs.
Oh, sorry.
No, I had it set right
know.
where it needed to be.
The
There we go. That
role
was
in this learning community.
what does it feel like and what does it sound like, and use those adjectives that we brainstormed together for our norms.
Social studies is collaborative. Everybody's kind of working together.
We get to choose norms we think will help us with our work and get it done.
This teacher created a common language with which to talk about our learning community.
Let's start at this table right here.
It looks and should feel focused.
If we weren't focused, we wouldn't get any work done. If we weren't communicative, we might have someone struggling in the group.
We can suggest to the group you should be able to say it at a controlled tone.
Great. Thank you guys for reflecting on those norms, and we're going to think about those as we continue our work today.
So one key takeaway that I wanted you to get from this is that the students have created the norms, but they're really having some rich discussions about what those things look like in the context of their class. And you can, or teachers can reference these norms at the beginning of an activity or at the end. So those reflection activities can happen at any point during instruction. So if you found a strategy that supports student success or a positive takeaway, feel free to drop that in the chat. We have establishing norms in the beginning, right? Students creating the norms. That student ownership can help buy in, especially for our older students. Students understood and discussed what they need to complete the task for the day. The collaboration, student buy-in belief is always a great idea in general. Student participation, very good. Thank you. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So now we have the question of how. How does the matrix become a daily tool? So we've got a couple of things we can do. Of course, we have to explicitly teach it, and we can pare this down a little bit as we are sprouting and growing with our classroom teachers. You can explicitly teach maybe one routine and one norm at a time, modeling and practicing pointing during transitions and redirection, but also using neutral language. We don't want it to always feel punitive. And using it for feedback so that behavior-specific praise can be tied directly to the language in the matrix, and we can have quick reteaching moments when those norms aren't met. And then, of course, we want to revisit the matrix after breaks, after schedule changes, new routines, and even update it with student voice. So before we move on to the next slide, which of these feels like the easiest starting point for the teachers in your building right now? So you can drop in the chat, teach it, reference, revisit, or feedback. Which do you feel like might be the easiest starting point for teachers right now? We've got some others in the comments about the video. Having students work through why and how the norms will contribute to their success was powerful. Making the connection. All right, so the easiest starting point looks like teaching it, referencing it. Oh, revisiting, I like it. Teach it, reference, teach it. So we want our classroom teachers to have the focus that these behavior skills can integrate naturally into their academic instruction, right? They're not separate things, and we want that to feel natural. Thank you for participating in the chat. So I have some examples for a transition reminder before moving from group work to independent work. The teacher points to the matrix and says, remember, during independent work time, respect column says we use quiet voices so everyone can focus. Let's get set for success. And then I have a rationale for each one. That particular strategy helps keep norm fresh in the student's mind and links that visual system to a specific routine. With a positive acknowledgement, maybe during a science lab, the teacher notices a student cleaning up materials without being asked, and they gesture to the responsibility row and say, that's exactly what responsibility looks like in our class. Thank you, Josiah, for modeling it. That reinforces those visual norms through the authentic in the moment praise, making the matrix part of the culture. And then student-led reflection, we saw this in that video. Except this example is saying at the end of the day, students quickly review one row of the matrix and share examples of how they demonstrated that behavior during the day. So that, of course, encourages the students to internalize those norms while making that visual tool their regular reference point. So the video was before class, and then this reflection example is for afterwards. Both can be powerful. All right, so here's what it looks like across grade levels, and I broke it up across grade levels. However, these strategies can work in any grade level, right? So for the K-5, I won't read through all of these exactly, but we have in the K-5 example, the transition to small groups, and in practice what that looks like. Through the 6-8, we have collaborative group work, and then 9-12, we have independent work time. Again, those routines happen in all grade levels typically, so what it looks like might be different developmentally, but ultimately, we're looking for the in-the-moment referencing of that matrix. And Karen, if you click one more, they've got some animations there with some coaching look-fors. Go ahead and click for the other two. Thank you. So as a support for your classroom teachers when you are interacting with your teachers in their classroom. These are some things that you can look for to know whether the matrix is being really leveraged like it could be. So for the first example, a coaching look for is where students can verbally explain what respectful transitions look like, kind of like we saw in the video. In the collaborative group work, the teacher might reference that matrix throughout instruction and not just at the beginning. So we're not talking about just in the beginning of the year, but even in the beginning of the lesson throughout the activity itself. And then for the independent work time, that redirection, if it happens, is neutral and not punitive. All right, we have more examples to see in action. I've got a couple more videos for you. So in this one, when we play, I want you to watch the video, and this is the practice model praise in action. And in the chat, I want you to write down what you notice about the teacher's redirection.
Let's try this. Ooh, almost got it. Let's try again. Ready? Oh, hold on. Let's get it right. Ready? Wait for me. Let's try it again. We got this. Wait for me first. I go dot, 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 and you go bop, bop. Ready? That is how you do it. Great job.
All right, so here's our question for the chat. What did we notice about the teacher's redirection? All right, we had that it's encouraging, giving positive encouragement. It was in the moment, didn't wait until next time. He stayed positive in his redirection. He had plenty of patience, intentional and encouraging opportunities to practice, and he restated what he was looking for clearly. So that's really what I wanted us to take away from this, is that he, in the moment, was reteaching, but also kept his tone neutral and it wasn't punitive. And he, in the moment, modeled and practiced and then gave them the opportunity to try it again. So I think that's a great way that we can practice model praise in action. All right, here's another example. This is an elementary video, obviously, with the children, but I do want to point out that this same concept can apply for secondary because this is around conversation norms with partner work. So here's what we're looking for if we are a coach or support for the teacher is, can students verbally explain what respectful partner work looks like? And let's see how this plays out.
So as we get ready to go back to work with our partner, we always have to remember our conversation norms. It's so important that when you're having a conversation that you show respect. So what are the 3 ways we show respect for our partner? Brianna.
Keep your eye on the speaker.
Okay, keep eye contact with the speaker. Make sure you're looking at your partner as they talk to you. Number 2, Natalia.
Listen to the people that I'm talking to.
Right, be an active listener. Pay attention to them, okay? And they'll know that you're paying attention if you're looking at them as well, right? You're not looking out the window. Okay, and the last one, which is most important, I think, for my class, what do we always try to do?
Stay on topic.
Absolutely, stay on topic. And what's our topic today?
Vocabulary strategies.
Okay, good, vocabulary strategies.
Okay, so as we can tell, the students can verbally explain what respectful partner work looks like. And I also want to point out that all of those skills that they mentioned were positively stated. So they are getting that shared language from somewhere, and it's from their classroom matrix. So that's one example. We've got one more of the norms in action. This again is an elementary setting, but it can apply to secondary. This is about prompting those those appropriate behaviors at the start of an activity. And if you were coaching, you would be looking for the teacher referencing those skills throughout instruction, not just at the beginning. Thank you, Karen.
For apologies and acknowledgments, and remembering that this is a time to acknowledge.
For norms to work, they must be considered and discussed almost every day.
Maybe things didn't go so well for you as they could have today.
I apologize to Anthony because I got him mad in fitness.
I acknowledge David and McDelvitt for letting me sit at their table at lunch.
Okay, so the takeaway for that is you could tell those students had practiced that procedure multiple times, that they knew exactly how to start their sentences, and that even though they were well versed in that routine, the teacher still prompted which behaviors were appropriate at the beginning. So you could tell that wasn't their first, second, probably, or third time because of how smoothly they were reciting their apologies and affirmations or acknowledgments. But she still, despite it being a well-practiced routine, she still prompted that appropriate behavior in the beginning. All right, and our last video is going to be a little bit different in the sense that this is going to be more like the videos that Karen showed last week with the introducing the modeling of the school-wide expectations. This is a similar version for classroom matrix teaching, and there are a ton of these out there online, and I just want to give a tip that as you are looking for inspiration, or if you are creating some of these with your students, that we want the teachers, if you are modeling the non-examples, we want the teachers to be doing that instead of the students modeling the non-examples. We only want the students to model the correct way or the examples of that appropriate behavior. It gives them another opportunity to practice. So if you're doing the non-examples, allow the teachers to do it, just like in this example. And Karen, since we're short on time, maybe just like 30 seconds or so.
Reviewing behavior for the classroom matrix for IGHMS. These students are entering the room without respect to the classroom or each other and are not acting safely. Where did she find duct tape?
So that, if you have time later, you should go watch the whole example. It's a really cute video. They did a great job with it. And they use the teachers to demonstrate the non-examples, and the students will demonstrate the correct examples of that appropriate behavior. All right, so now it's time for our coaching strategies. So think about putting on your coaching hat because you're supporting those teachers in your building. I love Mr. Alexander's example of providing the sunshine and the nutrients. I love that. So we want to think about the shift, and I'm mentioning the shift as in from the classroom teaching matrix just being posted to it actually being practiced during the real routines. So as you are supporting your teachers, here's some ways that you can support them. You can support them by planning, helping them plan when norms are taught, how they're modeled, how they're practiced, when they're revisited, when they're reinforced. And when you are in their classrooms, you can look for, are the routines explicitly taught and not just posted? Are the norms practiced during real routines? Is that matrix referenced during instruction and transitions? So on the next slide, we have tips on ways to do that. So first, start small. If you have some teachers who are really in the sprouting phase of their teaching plan, to start small, you can support teachers in choosing just one routine, one norm, 1 week, start there, and then build on that success before expanding. We also want you to be able to co-plan and not just check. So we want to be in a partnership and not just the accountability piece. So help walk your teachers through answering, how will I introduce this? How will students practice it? How will I know it's working? And the third step, to observe for use, not just present. So that's that shift that I was talking about, from it just being posted and looking pretty on the wall to us actually using it as an instructional tool. And then, of course, we always want to reinforce that adult consistency. So encourage that common language, spotlight some of those teachers, have some other teachers observe them, doing it the way that they're leveraging that classroom matrix. All right, so shifting the conversation, again, we're shifting from is it posted to is it being taught and used? I want you to think about supporting teachers in teaching norms in ways that students can actually use. So throughout this month and next month, I invite you to choose one teacher, one routine, and one norm to practice supporting them and building that simple teaching plan, which is how will it be introduced, practiced, and reinforced. So I want you to, in the chat, I want you to think about and share one specific teacher. Do not name them. Don't actually put their name. Let's just put our 5th grade math teacher, and one routine to support them in building a simple teaching plan. So have one teacher in mind, and which routine are you going to help them support and plan over the next month or so? And bonus, if you can include a coaching move that you plan to use, which could be co-planning a teaching plan, modeling how to teach the routine, observing and giving feedback, helping align language to school-wide norms. How do we want to shift the conversation and move it forward? So maybe over the next month, you're going to help a 1st grade teacher model transitions. Or maybe you'll have your 5th grade math teacher help them plan their initial teaching plan. Or we've got Elizabeth, 4th grade ELA with transitions. Excellent. We had a lot of sprouting teaching matrix schools and growing, so this is a great opportunity. Teachers still developing their matrix, so we're in the planting seeds and not sprouting. I like that. Okay, so even if you're not ready yet to support them in their matrix teaching plan, you might have some predictions on grade levels that might need a little bit more support when you are ready to do their teaching plans. Mr. Alexander, 8th grade science, establishing those classroom norms and aligning them to school-wide norms. So good. Teaching transitions between contents with self-contained SPED by implementing a teaching plan. Love it, Mr. Price. All right, as you're thinking of your teachers, you can still drop them in the chat. Karen, we go to the next slide and we'll share some resources and reminders with you. First, we want to remind you to prioritize the teaching plan, which is the who and the when, and bring this plan to our March PL day, and this would just be the draft. And your goal is to implement at the beginning of next school year. So we don't necessarily have to have all the questions answered by the March PL day, but we do want to implement and have this ready to roll out at the beginning of next school year. And our resources that we have for you are from the Day 2 School Team Workbook. I've got the page numbers listed for you. There's that planning discussion guide for your school team. There's links to asynchronous courses. We have samples, we have templates. And then also, I didn't want you to forget about the coach guide that's included with your Day 2 resources. There's a high quality behavior instruction folder or coach guide, sorry, that has one-pagers. It has goal setting templates. It has an implementation checklist, progress monitoring checklist, or templates and strategies resources that might be helpful as you are planning to support your teachers in this. So don't forget about those 2 resources that you have. And of course, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat or you can email me. I'm here for you.
Thank you so